Hey guys, it's Jobbin. Before we start today's episode, we did want to share a quick disclaimer. While this episode is filled with hope and encouragement, there are some sensitive themes that we talk about, such as suicide. If you're a listener that struggles with these themes, please feel free to skip this episode. If you are looking for resources, in the States you can dial the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. And for our international listeners, you can go to the website findahelpline.com to search for your country and resources near you. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Restoring the City podcast. Unit conversations on today's topics to help connect our community. And I am with the one and only Jeswin Thomas, my fellow co-host, and it is NBA playoff season. Jeswin, how excited are you that the Bulls are not in it?
I mean, are we ever in it? I mean, since Derrick Rose went down with that ACL injury, our hopes and dreams as a city has been lost, and our incompetence keeps us lost.
Yes. And I think throughout this series, we've been in this connector series, and I think every time we've opened up this podcast, we've been talking about basketball. And it's always been our connection point. I think we've mentioned basketball in every episode. And it just shows how meaningful it is, even though we've never played, probably never even sniffed the opportunity to play in the NBA. But I think that's what makes this conversation so special. We are with a great leader that I've connected with over Instagram. We've just, blossomed a friendship, honestly, and from across the globe. I want to welcome and introduce our audience to Shibu Zachariah Alexander. I know everybody calls you Zach, but Shibu, I just wanted to introduce you to our audience. You are the founder of Hope Deli, a church in India, and also have an organization called Courtside Connections, which is really awesome, the way you use basketball to build relationships. First of all, Shibu, how are you? How's it going? And how early is it in India for you right now?
Hey, thank you, Jobbin and Jeswin. Such a pleasure to be here on a Monday early morning. I think it's around 8 a.m. in the morning, so it's okay. It's not as hard as you would have expected it to be in the month of May, but God has been a little kind to us in the last few days. There's been some good showers here and there, so yeah, pretty excited, super stoked. Thank God it's Monday.
Yes, we're excited to have you on. It's been awesome to get to know you, see your story, and how you're not only leading a church plant, but you're leading an organization. And Jeswin, I know this is the first time you're getting to connect with Shibu, and we'll share all the socials and Instagrams. But I wanted to start off with a pretty important question, to be honest, that is really going to lay out the foundation for the rest of this talk. And especially when it comes to basketball. I think you know, Shibu, that Jeswin and I are from the city of Chicago, and I live in Dallas. Jeswin is still in Chicago, but there is no basketball conversation that could be had without asking this question. Who is the GOAT in your opinion? Please.
It's just one GOAT. There's always been only one GOAT, Michael Jordan.
That's right.
Here you go. Should we just end the podcast?
Yeah, that's great. Nice to meet you. Perfect.
Nice to meet you. Yes. Great. I hope millions of people come to your church. So,
yes, I honestly don't understand the debate on that. So yeah, it is what it is. If you watch basketball, if you understand basketball, I mean, come on now. It's NJ for sure.
A lot of our American audience is not educated as much as they should be, but I'm glad the international audience knows exactly who we're talking about here. But on a serious note, it's surprising to talk to someone from India, and you would assume, man, how did basketball become your love and passion in a country that's so passionate about cricket? Where does this love for the game even stem from?
Hey, that's a great question, Jeswin. I honestly have this very vivid memory of how I started playing basketball. I was 6 years old, and I remember back in my school days, we call it the UKG, right? LKG, UKG. So it was in my UKG where we were asked to make a science project. And I just had to go and tell my mom, hey, ma, you know what? Like, they're asking us to do a science project. So would you be able to help me? For reasons unknown, my mom decides to build me a basketball board, right? And took about like a week for her to build it. And mind you, this is back in 1998, where you did not have access to basketball in India. Cricket is the most glorified sport. Maybe the second one was hockey. So my mom built me this basketball court, and I mean the board, and then I took it to the school. And during the science exhibition, like I'm the odd one out with a basketball board out there. And with the basketball. So the principal comes around and she's like, so what's going on? I said, well, this is a basketball board. I'm just gonna show you how I'm gonna shoot the ball. I shot the ball twice and I remember missing the ball twice. Not a great shooter. Yeah, so that was my very first memory of basketball. It happened to be like a core memory for me. And since then, I've been playing ball. Since I was 6, I've been playing ball. So that's my little context towards basketball.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I think those memories as a kid, it really formulates and shapes us into who we eventually become, right? Is there an aspect about the game that helps you feel valued, or what is it about the game that impacts you, or has it influenced you into some of the activities that you do now?
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'm not a great shooter. Okay. I'm not a great shooter, and I have to say this. Uh, I think when I started playing basketball, especially in my elementary school, I got to give credits to my coach. I was such a puny kid. Like I was so weak and puny. Like I would look like a pencil, and me holding the ball was like, everyone thought I was gonna fail. Like, ah, man, I don't think this kid's gonna become anything great through the sport. But the fact that my coach saw that how great of a facilitator I was, he made sure that I learned how to play the point guard position. So I eventually became the point guard position, and I was pretty good in making plays. You didn't have to shoot the ball, just make the plays. And when it comes to defense, I'm the guy who's hustling, like in and out, and I'm sprinting back and forth. And I think as a coach, especially when you're an elementary school coach, you need someone who can sprint back and forth to get the ball going. So I think being a facilitator and the fact that your role makes you sing, because if I don't make the first pass, the play is not going to happen. I don't need to be a great shooter. I don't need to drive. I don't need to attack. I know I'm going to get like blocked a zillion times every time when I attack because I was such a short and a puny kid. But the fact that I could just like rely on my strength and facilitate the team, and I see that happening right now as well. I think I've become a better facilitator over the last few years. So I think basketball is definitely the conceiving point for me.
That's awesome. And I think maybe even for context, can you share a little bit, Shibu, about like your role and your job? Because I know you coach as well as you started some of these organizations as you're a church planter. So can you just kind of give us the brief synopsis of what you do?
Yeah. So currently I live in Delhi. I'm not from Delhi though. I'm from Chennai. It's been 3 years since I moved to Delhi. My wife is from Delhi and got married, and I moved here, did the most rebellious thing that an Indian parent wouldn't like, because it's always the girl who has to go to the guy's side. But here I am, the guy coming to the girl's side. Anyway, that being said, I am currently working as a basketball coach right now. And I work with the American Embassy School in New Delhi. Besides that, I also do my one-on-one coaching. And my wife and I, we are planting a church here in Delhi called Hope Deli. In fact, my wife is the one who has been pioneering this church since 2017. So I joined only in 2022. So now we're doing this together. And apart from that, I also run this basketball community called the Courtside Conversation. The reason why I started Courtside Conversation is because in the last 3 years of being in Delhi, I realized that Delhi doesn't thrive in great friendships. People don't trust you. The relationship is always at stake here. The second you're kind to someone or you're nice to someone, they're always thinking, okay, what agenda do you have? I'm like, well, honestly, nothing, man. Just want to be nice to you. So yeah, that's the kind of a city that I live right now. And this is some of the things that I'm doing. Yeah.
Maybe let's dive into that a little bit. where does that distrust come from in a city like Delhi? Because when we think about, especially just Indian culture in general, I always get the perception of hospitality, right? You might meet another person and say, hey, come over for chai, we can drink something and, have a little meal. It's almost, you have that perception of that culture, but hearing a little bit about Delhi and that distrust, where does that stem from? And then the second part of that question would be, where did you start realizing basketball could be a way to stem this problem? Because that's such a outside the box thinking and such a creative solution.
Yeah. So when I respond to this, I want to let you know that I'm saying this from from a space of great sensitivity, because um, I'm from the south. I'm from Chennai. Is probably one of the most beautiful cities that you can live in. People are always kind. They're very warm. So that's been all my life. And when I moved to Delhi, my wife gives me a heads up. She's like, "Hey, babe, you know what? It's not going to be as easy as you think it is." I'm like, "Wait, what are you saying? Like, it's me. I can get along with people." And then when I came here, the reality check was hard. Because I remember the very first time when I moved here, I got scammed, uh, and that really broke my heart, because if someone ever cheats you because of money, and that would never sit well with me. And this has happened multiple times to me. And not just that, like when I started going to my workplace, when I started mingling with people, I started realizing like there's always this, if people always masquerade as someone else in front of you. And that really bothered me. And I started asking my wife, like, why is this? Like, what's going on in this city? And honestly, my wife didn't have much answers, because it became a part of their culture. It became like the norm for them to even differentiate, hey, maybe people don't have to be like this. So she grew into that culture where she thought this is how people are. But when she travels to South, she's like, what's going on here? Why are people so kind? Why are people so warm? Why is everyone coming and asking me? Why is it so hospitable? I'm like, wait, isn't that how it's supposed to be? So that's when I started doing my research. I started understanding. One sensitive part that has been happening in Delhi is that the last 8 decades, there's been a war that's been going on, a communal war. If you look at Delhi as a geographical location, what happens is, like, right from the ancient time, people always came to Delhi to conquer it, right? So the second when someone comes to conquer the capital, people are always in fear. For example, just few years ago, there was a war that started here, a communal war, and that's been like an ongoing one for the last few years. So just when it was about to dim down, and people have started to heal, voila, the India-Pakistan war happened. So people just go through this war time and time again, and Delhi is so crazy. People live in communities, like small pockets of communities. They don't coexist with each other. Again, I could be wrong, but this is just my observation of being here in the city for the last 3 years. And I honestly think it's mainly because of the war that this land has been going through. And I really hope and I pray to God that it ends really soon. Because I think my city is really crying because of brokenness, broken home, desperate for genuine friendships. Because as much as my wife would say, hey, I was born into this culture, but because of the God consciousness within her, she knows that she was created to thrive in the relationship or in a community. So that part of it is always there, where people are constantly like, longing for it. So I hope I answer that question.
Yeah.
No,
I actually wanted to jump in too, because I think it's really interesting, because a lot of us have a heart for our own place, right? Where we're from. And then when we're put in a place that's not our own, I think sometimes it's harder. Maybe I'm speaking for experience. I just moved to Dallas 3 years ago, and everybody I meet is like, hey, are you acclimating? Are you adjusting? And sometimes it's harder than it is when you're at home to build relationships. So can you speak about the journey about being in a new place and trying to find community where there probably wasn't one before?
Yeah. Again, so when I moved to Delhi, the first thing I did was start looking around for basketball courts. I just wanted to find out like where I can go hoop, because to me, I thought that was probably the best way to start looking for communities. And the communities that I went and I started playing, I realized that people were just being very snobbish. And I don't like it when you go for these pickup games and people kind of act all snobbish when you know, like, man, that's not who you really are.
Right.
Uh, and over a period of time, because of the way how I've been treated here in the city, there's a lot of racism out here. The second they know that you're from South and you get called by different names here, and it was honestly it was very sad. There were days that I used to cry to my wife. Yep, there you go. I said it. As a man, I did cry to my wife. And that's when I think I realized that instead of waiting for someone to fix this, I'm going to be the one who's going to fix this issue in Delhi right now. And then I started looking at the context of my life. I'm like, wait, all my life I've been pioneering something or the other. So I spoke about this to my mentor. I said, hey, you know what? I'm so tired of taking initiatives. Like, I feel like I'm the only one who's always like taking initiatives. And then he said, hey, Shibu, don't worry about it. That's your heart. You got to do it. You cannot wait on someone else to do it. God has blessed you with this. You have to just do it. I said, okay, cool. So that's when I started thinking about, like, how do I make these communities, and what can be the connecting point, like what can be the bridge that helps people to see that, okay, this is a good place for me to come and look for genuine friendships. So I think it all started this year, when the Lord really spoke to me through Chennai 29:7, seek the welfare of the city, and when it prospers, you will also prosper. Now I'm like, God, like, I'm not a missionary. Like, I mean, I know I'm a missionary here in the city, but I don't think I can build schools or, hospitals. Like, how do I do this? And then that's when the Lord clearly spoke to me. When I was in the shower one morning, it always happens to me in the shower. I don't know why. Probably the cold shower that just helps. And he said, why not basketball? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So let me try. So that's how the whole Courtside conversation started, and trying to build that community right now. Honestly, it's just been like a month. Oh, wait, today is May 26th. Yeah, it's been a month. It's been a month since we started Courtside Conversations, where we are trying to bridge that gap between the city and the culture, and helping people to understand that you can find genuine friendships here.
Man, that's awesome. I was going to say, well, one, as you said, it was May 26th over there. I started looking at our calendar, and I'm like, oh, man, this is one of the only interviews where we're technically in the past, and May 25th, interviewing someone in the future. So let us know how it is. But second, man, congratulations. 1 month of Courtside Conversations. That sounds incredible. What I would say in the last month, as people have, really been coming and getting plugged into the setting of basketball, but at the same time, having these genuine conversations, are there spiritual thirsts and hungers that you've started to identify that have really come out of this, of the people of Delhi where you're ministering right now?
Yeah. So once we run this Courtside conversation, towards the end, I always say this: hey, our lives don't end here today. Okay? For the next 1 week or couple of weeks, I want to meet you guys for a cup of coffee. Coffee's on me. So if you guys want to meet me, now is your good opportunity to tell me if you want to meet me or not. So I start planning it up, and then I meet them. So it was in this one-on-one time with the people, I started realizing that there's a lot of space for blurry conversations. What I mean by that is, at Courtside Conversations, we play for almost like 2 hours. And right after we are done playing, the last half an hour, 45 minutes, we bring in like open mic, get people to perform. And then we talk about like gospel values, right? Not directly preaching, but we talk about gospel values. But then I understood, like, when I put people like in small pockets of communities and help, get them to share, they're still not sharing what they want to share, because they're always like, trying to figure out, okay, can I really share this without being judged and things like that. But it is during a one-on-one, because I ask like really good questions, is what my friends tell me. And I ask like intentional questions, no surface level questions. I want to get right into it, want to get to know your life, who you are, what's your story, what are some of the things that you're struggling with. So it is in these conversations, guys, I kid you not, at least 4 people have told me that if not for Courtside Conversation, they would have ended their life, because they were thinking of ending their life.
Wow.
And that to me was very heavy, because I didn't know how to process it. and a little bit of a backstory of the many reasons why we started Courtside Conversation. One of the other reason is also because my wife and I, we lost one of our very good friends here in Delhi because she had committed suicide. Just like in the month of March, the first week of March. So we hear this news and we were bummed off. And we were like, how? Like, what did we do wrong that we didn't know what our own friend was going through?
Yeah.
And that really broke us. So after hearing stories like this, now I'm starting to sense what God has really been trying to do here in the city through Courtside Conversation. Yep, the spiritual hunger is definitely there because one of the important questions that I always ask people is this: what's the most meaningful thing in your life right now? And they often don't have an answer to it. They always say, oh, nobody's ever asked me that question. Oh, I didn't know we can have something meaningful. And I'm like, wow, that's heavy, bro. Like, how do you not identify that? And then once I tap into that question, people then ask me their questions like, how are you like this? So that's when the space for, me opening up about who Jesus is and what he's done for me. Because I used to be suicidal as well. Like I've attempted suicide like multiple times. Like I've cut myself, I've popped pills, I've done a lot of crazy things, but thank God for his grace that he saved me for this very moment. So there is definitely a lot of spiritual hunger because people are craving for genuine relationships. Yeah.
That's thank you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that, Shibu. And I think one of these, the beauty of these conversations, and when we connect with each other, we get to hear stories that really impact not just surface level, like you said. It's just really hitting us at our core. I think this is so important to touch on, and I'm sure there's things that only God can understand. And when I hear these stories, it's really tough to decipher, like, what was the plan of God right at this moment. But like, you're showing up for these people, right? Like, you're showing up at a basketball court for these people. And I want to highlight that because we've had a series of connectors and we find that there's certain attributes of people that make them a connector, not just an audience member, right? And I think there's this need, like you mentioned, of people desiring community and wanting intentional and deep relationships, but it's not always possible without somebody like you who could stand in the gap, right? And actually say, I'm going to bring these people together. You've talked about it, asking intentional questions, deep questions. What is it about you that makes you crave, or you say you take the initiative? Like, what motivates you to do that? Like, not everybody has that attribute. That's what I'm really curious. Like, what is it about you, Shibu, that makes you want intentionality?
Yeah. When I was growing up, guys, I have a lot of stories like in the past. Like I have a very traumatic childhood, so everything stems from that. Yeah. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a household where we lived in a joint family, and I was the only guy who didn't have a sibling, right? And all my other cousins, they had a sibling, and I always felt like an odd one out all my life. I don't know why. All my cousins, they studied in one school, but I studied in a different school. Like all my cousins did one thing, I'm doing the opposite. And for me, I felt like I could never find someone with whom I can relate my life to. And number two, nobody took the intention, the how do I say? Nobody really took the effort to come and get to know my life as well. And for several years, I was just like, man, like, what is this? Like, how come nobody's like wanting to come and talk to me, right? Um, and I think that's when I realized that I eventually started becoming that guy where it's okay if you're not coming. I will be that guy who will come to you. And honestly, this is way before I even knew the Lord, right? And I think the Lord was already working in me even before I knew Him. And I just think it came naturally to me. But again, to back this up, my parents are also like this. My parents, they have crazy social life. like the number of people that they wanted to invite for my wedding were close to like 2,000 people.
Wow.
And yeah, thank God COVID happened. And I say this in a good way, because I could just have my wedding with just 50 people and get over with it. So when I look at my, my parents, when I look at my own life, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's probably something that I'm getting it off from my parents as well. But the reason why I intentionally connect is, man, Jesus showed up for me at the darkest day of my life. And I don't know what my life would have been if not for that encounter. Yeah, I think that encounter really changed my life, made me realize that if I don't do this now, I'm accountable to God on the day when He comes back. Like, why didn't you do this? Like, I'm scared if you will ever ask me that question. That's another reason why I do that as well. Maybe the last thing that why I do this is because I read this quote where it said, I think it's by Mr. Theodore Roosevelt. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I've always been surrounded with people like who always showed off, especially in a church context. Maybe it's a story for another day, where people always showed up with what they knew, but they never showed the care element. So I think that quote also inspired me to be the kind of a person that I am today. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing to hear. And it's so funny, when we think about almost like the East and the West. I think a lot of times Joby and I would talk about there's such a potentially disconnect, but the more and more you share, it's almost like we're getting flashbacks to our experiences here, whether that's in a church context, mental health, so many different spaces that you're touching on. It just shows you just how universal our experiences truly are. But as you were just speaking about, Jesus showing up for you and kind of being that fuel for why you're doing what you're doing. Well, what encourages you to continue doing that? Because that's not an easy task, right? Just as you were sharing, to change culture. I mean, there's this one quote as you were sharing, from Theodore Roosevelt. I forgot who said this, but it was I recall this from a sermon. It took God one day to get the people out of Egypt, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of the people. Yeah. And you think about that. How do you change a culture of a city when it's so inculcated? Almost like that Egypt concept, right? You've lived and experienced one thing. How do you get that culture out? But more than that, how do you stay encouraged to keep doing this? Because you have such a amazing calling, but one that I would assume requires a lot of patience and long suffering as well. So what's encouraging you along the way?
Yeah. Honestly, my motive is the gospel. It's because of what Jesus did for me. And also in the last 3 years of being here in Delhi, I'm starting to realize that we have to change the culture, because as people, we are called to influence the culture here. Funnily, it's the other way that's happening right now. The culture is influencing all of us. Yeah, it's not easy because sometimes you see the fruits, sometimes you don't see the fruits. But I think it's worth going through it because nothing ever comes easy. And I think probably I'll go one step further and I say this. Until I see the fruits, right, I think the roots in me are also growing. Because until the roots within me grow, I won't be able to produce the fruits. So which is why I think, as much as I think that this is something God is doing to the city through me, I also have to be humble enough to realize that God is doing something within me as well. Which is why showing up is very important, because if you don't show up for them, then who else is going to show up for them? Now they are literally waiting on me. For example, I do Courtside Conversations only once in 2 weeks on a fortnight basis, because there's a lot of cost involved to this. There's a lot of things that's involved to this. And then now suddenly I'm hearing messages and people are like, Zach, can you please run this every week? And I need this. I'm like, you know what? Let me think about it and thought through it, discussed with my wife, trying to put the finances around this. Is it really worth it to go all in? I believe so. Yeah, it is definitely worth it. And yeah, because why is that people want to come to this instead of going to a clubbing night or a DJ party night or whatever you can go on a Friday and a Saturday night, but instead they want to show up here. So I believe that the Spirit is doing something. I think when we show up, the Holy Spirit just moves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe to take it, a step deeper too, because there are going to be times, right? And I know it's going on for not a long time, but people don't show up, right? Like, especially as a leader, right? And I'm sure, especially at the church plant or whatever it is, when people don't show up, I know we have motivations and it's the gospel, but like, those moments when nobody shows, like, and how do you persevere? Because I think we've all been there, right? Like where we've tried to put a lot of effort towards something and then maybe we don't see the fruits, right?
Yeah.
What is it about? Like, how do you stay encouraged? I think and is it spiritual or do you have other people in your life to fill you up? Because I think as leaders, we empty our cup so much and then sometimes we don't get it filled enough. So how do you keep your cup full?
Okay. I seldom feel bummed off when people don't show up. I think it's an attitude problem. What I mean by that is, if I'm trying to do this for people to show up, yeah, that's good. But if I'm looking at the numbers, I don't think my heart is at the right place. Would I still run it if one person showed up? Yes, I would. Is it worth it? Yes, I would. Does it make a difference? Yes, I would. Can I go all in just for that one person? Yes, I would. Because if we can leave that 99 just for that one person, I'm pretty sure that it's worth it. And maybe a little bit of backstory to this. So a couple of years ago, when my wife and I, we were trying to do the whole church plant thing, and we were walking in this place called Connaught Place. They call it CP here in Delhi. It's the place where all the young people are, hanging out. There's a lot of crazy thing that happens out there. And then my wife and I, we decide, it was on a summer, June, I think it was in the month of June, summer, sun scorching heat around 2 in the noon. We take our guitars, we go in the middle of the CP, and then we start singing songs, we start worshiping. And then we put up a board that said, hey, scan this QR code. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling, depressed, if you're going through anxiety, scan this QR code and just put in your prayer request. We will pray for you. Jobbin and Jeswin, I gotta tell you this. The question that you asked me right now, I felt that day because we were standing and doing, like, hoping, like, we know for a fact that people are going through this, right? But you would see groups of people just going past us and they were like, yeah, kya hai? Like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong with these guys? And then you'll see another group of people, they will want to come, but the fact that them doing something like that becomes very unconventional for them, so they wouldn't do it. And the third thing is the most saddest thing, is that people, they will smile or they laugh at you and they'll just walk on. And that day for 1.5 hours, my wife and I, we were just like, I was looking at my wife and I'm like, babe, maybe today's not the day. And then she said, okay, let's go. And just that moment of our distrust, our disappointment, there was this one guy who showed up. He scanned the QR code and then he puts his prayer request. And then I started talking to him. And then he says, hey, I've been going through suicidal thoughts. I've been dealing with anxiety. Thank you for doing this. And that day was a great reminder for us that he left the 99 for one. So while I was waiting for 99 to show up, God still sent that one. And I think that one was worth it. Just be faithful at that. So I think that's my motivation. Like, just do it. Just go all in. Even if it's for one person, do it.
Man, I love that. And even as you were saying, God looks more at our faithfulness than fruitfulness, right? Like he will bring the fruit, but he's really looking at our faith. Just like you looked at Abraham, you think about that Hall of Fame of faith that we're thinking about in Hebrews. So that's such a beautiful story, and hopefully absolutely very encouraging for so many people, because I think oftentimes maybe as Indians, we're thinking about the giftedness, right? We're thinking about, man, you have to be a dynamic preacher to do ministry. You have to have X, Y, and Z to perform well. And we have all these litmus tests and, and measures of success. But one of the things that you brought out here is, man, all you're doing is showing up. There's something about you being persistent in your presence that is this key to really building this connection. What do you think? Why do you think that is more than like saying, hey man, like, I mean, oftentimes we could imagine if someone has a dynamic gift of preaching, you could imagine a crowd going around them. But what is it about just consistently showing up that you think is being effective in building this connection more than, a giftedness that we would conventionally think of?
Yeah. I think over the last decade, this is something I learned. Um, Relationship is the backbone of discipleship. If you really want to disciple someone, you better make sure that you build a relationship first with that person, right? And in order for you to build a relationship with someone, you got to show up.
Yeah.
You got to be there. You cannot expect to disciple someone without you showing up. It just makes no sense. And I'm glad that I've had friends around me in my life, leaders around me, who showed up in my life when I didn't want them to show up. Uh, I think because of that, it's kind of rubbed off on me. You can always impress people by being very far, but you can only impart when you're near to them. And I think that's the kind of a people that I grew up with in the last 10, 12 years. Like I would always have like people around me from far off. I'm like, wow, like look at this guy, like so cool, right? Sometimes I look at the two of you watching the restoring study. I'm like, wow, this is so cool, man. What you guys are doing? But it's in my honest conversations with Jobbin bro the last couple of months where there are certain things he's imparted in me because he showed up. He showed up in the middle of the night in early mornings, like just to have that 5 minutes conversation of getting to know me, right? So I think that matters. I think that's what I believe.
And that's, I'm going to attest to that too. I'm going to throw some more praise on Jobbin here. I mean, he's been such a mentor to my life, even in seasons where I've been very low. I mean, Jobbin's seen me through some of my worst failures, but again, it's the fact that it was just a constant presence in those seasons, just all the time. So I completely echo that sentiment as well.
Yeah, but I think and I can say the same thing about you, Jeswin, but also like there's people who've done that for me. And I think what the goal too is, that's what makes connectors, right? Like we're all connecting community somehow, not for the clout, not for the followers, not for the, I love the analogy, but like impressing from far away, but imparting from closeness. Yeah. Like, man, because everybody I talk to wants community and they're searching for it, but there's people who want to cultivate it. But maybe there's a fear. I don't know what it is, but do you guys think it is a fear of people not wanting to show up? Or is it laziness? Or like, why don't people do more of these things, right? Like they may not start Courtside Conversations, but the people who complain about community, there's all these attributes that we're highlighting here that it's not like a superpower, right? We just have to show up. Like, why do you think it is that people don't pursue community with intentionality? Is there a hypothesis? Not that we have to solve the mystery of the world here, but like, what do you guys think it is that pulls people back from taking the initiative here?
Well, I'll let you answer right after this, Shibu, but I was going to say for me, I'll say out of experience, I think I've shared this before, for me, when I was in college, I definitely went down the partying, drinking, route for quite a bit until the Lord met me halfway into my college experience. But it's ever since that point that I always thought, man, as much as I hang around these Christians doing the Christian thing, I always have a heart for the people that were just like me, that are not part of the small group, that are not part of the church, that are not coming and showing up. And I would love to do something with them. And so when I graduated, naturally, one of the first thoughts is, after talking to a couple of people, it's like, man, we should come together and do a Bible study. But the second thought that came to my mind was, I'm trying to do this with people that we don't necessarily go to the same church. We don't necessarily believe the same things. This is not going to work. And if this starts and within 2 weeks it fails, there's this bad notion that came into my head. It was almost false theology that says, then it couldn't have been God's will. If you do something and it's a perceived failure, it can't be God's will. So I started talking to one of my old mentors, and he said, Jeswin, if you do something for 2 weeks, but you do it all out faithfully for the glory of God, that's 2 more weeks that God got glory from you than he would not have otherwise. So go with that attitude. And that sort of clicked for me. Something changed with that, where the fear of failure is probably what held me back personally, but that push toward just being faithful is that motivation that kind of really broke through. And we saw that ministry actually grow for a couple of years. We kept it going for quite a bit, and even saw people get saved through that. So for me, I'd say, Jobbin, to your question, is I think the fear of failure, especially coming from an Indian lens, right? There is this idea of success, the honor, everything that comes with that causes us to really fear, unconventional routes, or even the failure. But I would love to hear your response as well.
Yeah. Hey, Jeswin, I love that explanation. I think if I have to understand that, are you trying to say that obedience need not always mean results?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I want to lean into that as well. Because if I have to go like one step further, I would say like how our relationship with God determines our relationship with people. Because if we have a transaction relationship with God, and I think that's exactly how we're going to expect with people. I want to speak on behalf of the Indian community here, right? Who are living in India. Let me be very clear. We're Indian community living in India, right? We go to work. Why do we go to work? We don't understand that. We think we go to work because we have to make money. And we think if we do well, there's going to be a reward for it, right? Sometimes I think people are looking for a reward in doing something than not expecting a reward. So I think probably that is another element where people are kind of put off because they know, what am I going to get out of this? Like, there's no reward for this. I'm not going to get any money out of it. There's nothing for me in it. Like, what's in it for me? And maybe that could be another reason why people don't really initiate or kickstart. Is what I'm thinking right now. I'm just thinking out loud with you guys. This is my experience.
I love those answers too, because, and the reason this sparked, because I heard a sermon today at church, and I was just hearing about a lot of times we want the next level or we desire community, but we're not willing to sacrifice for it and to give up. And maybe fundamentally, I think it's maybe a lack of understanding of the gospel working in us sometimes too, right? Because Jesus left everything. He didn't need the attention or the accolades or anything when he came down for us, but he left everything. What would he gain? But unless it's the relationship with us, right? Like he gains us and he wins us back. And I think a lot of times when we seek community, or when maybe people say they want community, is they just want friendship, or maybe they think about community in a different type of lens. It's not like I want intentional relationships with the people around me that, if we look at the early church, how sacrificial were they? I don't know. Maybe it's a different definition, but I agree with all of that. There's shame, there's honor, there's clout that we want. There's different various reasons. But I think when you talk about your motivations of the gospel, I think that's so important. And why I want to bring that up is because, and not to glorify any of us, right? Because I think it's God working in all of us in all these areas of our lives. What do you say to those people who are trying to stir up community? And what are the kind of attributes that you would say, hey, start with this if you want to start something like Courtside Conversations or something else? Speak to that person, Shibu. Like, what would you tell them to help be an initiator of a community?
Yeah. In order for you to initiate, any community work, right? I think first you have to be a contributor. Here's what I would say. I learned in the last few years of my, discipleship, where there's this 4 qualities or 4 attributes that I was taught, and I think that's really helped me. It's called FAST, FAST. Be faithful, be available, be submissive, and be teachable. I think if you have these 4 qualities, you would automatically see, because I believe that God has given all of us this ability and the affinity, and at the right time, he gives the opportunity as well. Right? So while we are hoping that, okay, opportunity is going to come today, it's going to come tomorrow, and that's the problem. But if you can just continue to be faithful in doing what you're doing, just be available, be submissive, like have some leaders around you who can guide you and mentor you, because you cannot do this all by yourself. And be a person who's teachable as well, right? So I think if you have those 4 qualities, I think wherever you go, like be it the gym or cafes or I don't know, like basketball courts, like you can do this. Anyone can do this. You don't need to be a superhero. Because this generation is not looking for superheroes. They're just looking for genuine people. So I think that's what I would say.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. I will. I guess I did want to ask one question in relation to that. I think one thing you just mentioned was to try to find a mentor. And one of, I think, the hardest things that we've also been noticing in the States and clearly, from your conversation in India is it seems like mentorship isn't something that's been coming naturally within our culture. And I'm trying to figure out why that is. We're such a connected people, right? Like right now we are having a conversation within two different countries. We are the largest diaspora in terms of ethnicity in the world. We are so connected and yet we are so far apart. And I'm still trying to figure out why that is. So if there's someone that's out there that says, hey, Shibu, I would love to do exactly what you said, but I don't have that mentor in my life. What would you say to that person? Conversely, for those of us that are, kind of caught up in our own schedule, right? We can be a mentor. We're not making time or we don't really care to think about, using our life in that way. What would you say to that person as well?
Yeah, I honestly think there are multiple ways to answer this question. I obviously do not know which one is the right one. So, based on my experiences, I'll tell you. Number one, uh, go to a local church, talk to your pastor, like be vulnerable enough to say, I need a mentor in my life. Uh, Drop those pride walls and say, I need someone in my life. That's number one. Number two, um, if you closely look at your life, God has always given you a friend whom you've not really appreciated much. Connect to that friend. Ask that friend to be a mentor. That's number two. Worst case scenario, if nothing ever goes well, go back to your parents. If you have spiritual parents back at home, tell them, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. I obviously don't want you guys to be my mentor, but can you suggest someone whom you would know? Your parents have a worldwide network. Indian parents are crazy. They got connection all over the world. Like, kid you not, just talk to them. I'm sure they will have someone with whom you can help them out. Or if you want to do online mentoring, I'm here. Like, I'll try my best to give you guys my time as well. Want to get to know you because I love doing this. I enjoy doing this. So I think that's how I would respond to that.
I love that. I came from a graduation party right now, and I'm in Dallas, and of course I run into somebody who introduces themselves and they're like, "Oh, I know your dad." I'm like, "How do you know my dad?" It's crazy, but I want to key in on the first thing you mentioned, even just asking for a mentor, and you said remove those pride walls.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like it's a humbling thing to ask somebody for help. I don't know. Is this a cultural thing, especially as Indians? We need to excel at everything in education and in success. And if you ask for help, there's this stigma of, wow, you don't know it. And so you didn't figure it out on your own. And I think that's such a crippling trait. I don't know if that's what you perceive in India, but I know in America, in the States, it's always hard, and maybe even cross-culturally, to ask for help. It's such a debilitating thing perceptionally, right? Like for people. I don't know how to get rid of that, but I feel like once you do take that step, and maybe one is admit that we are prideful, because it's such a root of so many things. But like, how do we get rid of pride? Maybe it's to acknowledge it, but I'm curious, how do you get somebody to remove the walls of pride to take that step? Because I feel like that can unlock so much.
Yeah, I think the misconception here is people always think that you need to always showcase your strength to connect with people. But on the flip side, if you really understood the gospel, if you understood some of the characters in the gospel and what Jesus has been trying to teach, in my own life, I've seen that you can connect with people more with your weakness than with your own strength. Uh, just take that one step, like just say, hey, I need help. And you would be surprised to see how that relationship grows, how that conversation turns around in no time. It will just turn around because that's what I learned. I, I think there are still areas of life where I still deal with pride where I'm not really happy about. But I think in the sanctifying work of, in this journey, I've realized that pride is something that I'll probably take all the way to my grave if I have to be honest. Because I'm not a very humble person at all. Like, I know I have to deal with this all my life. But the fact that I'm saying that is that I've acknowledged, like you said, number one, I'm a prideful person. There's no harm in acknowledging it. Number two, asking for help is not a bad thing. And yeah, it's definitely the culture. It's definitely um, the other religions, what they try to feed you in as well. So I think that's probably the reason. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's like you said, it's something that I feel like all of us have to deal with in some way, shape, or form. But I'm glad that there's conversations being had in India. There's a lot of conversations being had over here and really fostering that vulnerability so that we can open up without a fear of judgment or without a fear of anything else. So I'm glad that there seems to be some things slowly shifting within us. And I think that's the hope for all of us, right? We can only imagine and dream in seeing a revival within the Indian community, both in India and at large, because of just how connected we are. If this one group of people could understand the gospel, we're everywhere. We are leaders of nations. We are politicians. We're leaders of massive companies. But if we don't have, that same sort of level of that spiritual heritage, or we think about who are our theologians, who are our thinkers, who are the people that can really step up in these arenas. But if God does something, I can't imagine the benefit to the entire world just through the Indian community.
I cannot agree more on that.
Yeah. So, Shibu, as we're wrapping up here, tell us how people, may be able to connect with you more. How can we follow what you're doing, both the Courtside Conversations, and otherwise?
Yeah. I mean, you can follow me on Instagram. You can look for the tag ID. I think it says me versus the world. That's my ID. And apart from that, I can probably give out my phone number as well. I can be happy to connect on WhatsApp, and I can give my Gmail ID as well. So yeah, I think those are some of the ways that I can definitely connect with people.
Yeah, and I think like seeing what you're doing with Hope Deli, and we'll tag and share your tags on Instagram about Hope Deli and Courtside Conversations. There's so much great stuff happening, and I think it's interesting to see how even just like the internet can connect us, and build these relationships. But more than that, it's the gospel story being written across the world. We didn't get to know you until months ago, Shibu, but like to see this and then see and spotlight the work that you're doing, not to lift up your own name, but to see how God is moving across the world in communities. So Shibu, just once again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and continue to persevere through it. And I'd love to, hear from our audience as well. If you want to connect with Shibu and just be inspired. And if you're looking for community and don't know how to start it, you don't have to just be a church planter, right? You can start somewhere, right? Where God has called you and given you talents, and really connect your community intentionally by building those relationships. So Shibu, thank you again so much for being on. We look forward to sharing your news and looking forward to who wins the NBA playoffs, but also what you're going to do on courts near you in Delhi. So thank you again.
Hey, thank you so much, guys. This has been a pleasure. There's a lot of joy in the last 1 hour. Thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Back soon. Thanks, guys.